The room was silent, but it wasn't the kind of silence that brings peace. It was heavy, suffocating. Mothers sat clutching photographs of their children. Faces streaked with tears. Families of victims leaned forward in their seats, hearts pounding, waiting for justice. Deputies stood by the walls, tense, hands ready to react. And at the center of it all sat the man who had once commanded fear across an entire city. A gang leader. A man who had built his empire on blood, violence, and intimidation. A man who believed he was untouchable. But today, he was about to learn that no empire lasts forever, and the words that would break him weren't bullets or threats. They were just a sentence, a life sentence. Years earlier, his name had been spoken in whispers. He started small, just another kid on the corner, but power came quickly. He built loyalty with violence, respect with fear. Soon, he wasn't just part of a gang. He was leading it. Drugs, extortion, racketeering. Whole neighborhoods felt his grip. People were too afraid to speak his name aloud. For every crime pinned him, there were whispers of 5 more that no one dared to report. But power breeds enemies. And it wasn't long before his crimes caught the eye of federal investigators. Surveillance teams followed his every move. Wiretaps recorded late-night calls. Informants began to crack under pressure. Piece by piece, the walls closed in. And eventually, they had enough. Enough to bring him into court. Enough to put the empire on trial. The trial was brutal. Weeks of testimony. Former associates taking the stand, pointing their fingers at the man who once controlled their every move. Families of victims crying as they recounted their pain. The defense tried to paint him as a product of his environment. They said he was a man who grew up in poverty, with violence as his only teacher. They begged the jury to see more than just the crimes, to see the person beneath the reputation. But the jury didn't buy it. The evidence was overwhelming. The phone calls, the money trails, the violence that stretched across years. It was undeniable. When the guilty verdict came, he sat stone-faced. No emotion, no tears. Almost as if he believed there was still a way out. But sentencing day, that was different. The courtroom was packed. Reporters lined the back, pens scribbling. The families of victims filled the benches, clutching each other's hands. Even rival gang members sat quietly, curious to see if the man they once feared would finally fall. The judge read through the crimes slowly. Each word struck like a nail in a coffin. Murder, racketeering, conspiracy, drugs, guns. The list was long. The silence was longer. And then came the moment. The judge looked up, his voice steady. For your crimes against this community, for the lives destroyed, for the blood spilled, this court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Gasps, cries. A mother in the gallery sobbed into her hands. A victim's father nodded quietly, tears streaming down his face. But the gang leader? For the first time in years, his mask cracked. At first, he shook his head, muttering under his breath. Then louder, his face flushed red. His fist slammed the defense table. This ain't justice. You hear me? This ain't over. Deputies rushed forward as his chair screeched across the floor. His lawyer tried to calm him, but he shoved the papers aside, screaming at the judge, at the prosecutors, at anyone who would listen. The gallery erupted. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras clicked, and families looked on in shock as the once untouchable gang leader was dragged down by deputies, shackles clanging against the floor. But what struck everyone wasn't his anger. It was what came after. As they pinned him down, his voice cracked. The rage faded. His eyes dropped. And through the chaos, he whispered words that silenced the room. I can't do life. The man who had once ruled through fear now looked small, broken, powerless. The deputies led him away, but the weight of his fall lingered in the air. Younger gang members in the gallery sat frozen. Some looked angry. Others looked terrified, because they hadn't just seen a sentence handed down. They had seen a preview of their own future if they followed the same path. For the victims' families, there was no celebration. Justice was served, but the wounds would never truly heal. For the prosecutors and law enforcement, there was relief, but also exhaustion. Years of work had led to this moment. And for the gang leader, It was the end of the empire. Not with a shootout, not with power, not with respect, but with a single sentence that would echo for the rest of his life. Because when the gavel falls, power fades. And no matter how feared a man might be on the streets, no one escapes justice forever. This is what happens when gang leaders react to life sentences.